In the 2 years that I've owned my Iron 883, I've put on 25,000 miles. It's time for an extended review. Stick around because I'm going to be talking about the Iron 883 in detail while covering long distance riding with it as well.
That laugh that you just heard, that's a I am alive laugh.
No review of the Iron 883 would be complete without a little bit of history and heritage included. In 1957, Harley-Davidson introduced the Sportster primarily to compete with the peppy European models that were dominating the market at the time. The result was that the Sportster would dominate Harley's sales for years to come. By the late 60s, the Sportster was second in sales to Harley's top production model, the Electric Light, and by 1970, the Sportster became Harley's top production model. If you do a side-by-side comparison of a 1957 Sportster with my 2017 Harley Iron 883, you can see a direct link both visually and technologically between the two. Essentially, it's 30-year-old technology wrapped in 60-year-old style. And that 30-year-old technology is the Evolution engine that's in my Harley Iron 883. In 1986, Harley went from the Iron Head engine in the Sportsters to the Evolution engine. And some would argue that the Evolution engine saved Harley from bankruptcy during the tumultuous AMF years. It's an engine that's known for being bulletproof. And over 25,000 miles, I definitely experienced the benefits of how bulletproof that engine is. I've never had any trouble with it at all, and I absolutely love that engine. While I'm riding my Harley Iron 883, that Evolution engine really makes itself known. Not just with the iconic beat of the potato, potato, potato sound, but also with piston slap. That air-cooled engine is built loose to allow for some expansion and flexibility. If you want a quiet engine, the Evolution is not for you. The Harley Iron 883 is not for you. The Evolution engine is also not known for being oil tight, and this is something that I've struggled with over the 25,000 miles. By design, oil mist comes out of the breather tubes and it collects inside the filter area. As you're riding down the road, that oil that's collected comes out of the filter all over your pipes and all over your pants and all over your seat. It's just something you have to deal with if you love Harleys. And quite honestly, I enjoy the smell of the gas. I enjoy the smell of the oil. It makes me feel like I'm riding a machine, and that's part of the enjoyment for me. I mentioned how noisy the Evolution engine is. You can definitely hear that primary chain clicking and clacking as it's going around. There are some oils that can quiet that down a bit, but there's just no getting around it. It's a noisy engine. Included in that is the transmission. When you shift a Harley Iron 883, you can hear the clunk of the transmission. It's really just a part of the enjoyment of riding that bike. You either love it or hate it. Again, for me, it makes me feel like I'm on a machine. Early Sportsters had 4 speeds. In 1991, to much celebration, Harley put a 5-speed transmission in the Sportster. The 883, unlike its 1200 brother, is geared so it's very torquey in the low end and revs high at the top end. Some argue that this is a detriment to being able to ride on the super slab and at fast speeds. Yes, this is true if you're used to riding touring models that are designed for comfort and eating up those miles. But my Route 66 trip has proved that it can be done. You can ride those highway miles, you can ride long distance on an 883. The key is to get on the bike, get out and ride in those environments, and get used to those high RPMs. Yes, it'd be more comfortable on a touring model. It'd be more comfortable on a bike that has lower RPMs at the high end, at higher speeds. That's not what that trip was about, but I proved you can ride long distance and at highway speeds and get used to those high RPMs easily. Get out and ride, get used to those high RPMs. It won't be an issue at all. Again, this is 30-year-old technology. 30 years ago, those high RPMs were the norm. Not just on bikes, but cars too, especially ones without overdrive transmissions. Now, my favorite place to ride my Harley Iron 883 is on country roads, especially in the Driftless region where it's hilly and curvy and just so much fun to ride. In those types of riding conditions, I am shifting often between 3rd, 4th, and 5th gears. So I'm often high in the RPM range to get the most out of that engine, to get the most out of my turns. And it's also great in an urban environment to ride in those higher RPMs so you can get yourself out of danger. To have that torque that's available with the Iron 883 is a benefit. And it makes it so much fun to ride on country roads and in urban environments. Could the 883 be geared differently for super slab riding? Yeah, if that's the type of riding you want to do. But if you want to go out, have a lot of fun on country roads, especially in hilly and curvy environments, the 883 is for you. Let's talk about wheels. So 19 100 in the front, 16 150 in the rear. That offset really gives the Iron 883 a top-heavy feel, especially while slow maneuvering. And especially with a tank lift like I have done on my Iron 883. It looks great, but it really does give it a top heavy feel. That top heaviness is something that you'll get used to after riding it, but again, if you're riding other bikes and you're used to bikes with that weight all down in the low end, the Iron 883 might be a bit of a challenge for you at first. But you'll get used to that top heaviness if it's your main ride. But I really like that skinny 19-inch front wheel. That bike goes exactly where you point it. It makes cornering and riding in the twisties so much fun, and the bike so easily controllable. I put on nearly 8,000 miles on the stock Michelin Scorchers. They're good street tires, but they're not great. They lack the longevity and the grip that I was looking for in a tire. I planned for a lot of long distance travel on this bike, and I wanted something that gripped in the rain a little bit more. When you're traveling long distance, you're gonna find yourself in the rain no matter how much you try to avoid it. So I definitely needed something that gripped a lot better in the rain. So I switched to the Bridgestone Battle Cruise H50s. Those tires had the longevity and the grip that I was looking for. So much so that I put on 15,000 miles on those tires. Yes, 15,000 miles, believe it or not. Perfect tire for that longevity. But more importantly, they had the grip that I was looking for, especially in the rain. Those tires really carried me through some very dangerous conditions along the Route 66 trip, and I'm thankful for them. And I love them so much that after 15,000 miles of use, I put on another set, and I've put on about 1,000 miles since I've swapped those out, maybe a little bit more. And I look forward to putting on a lot more miles on those Bridgestone H50s. They just carried me through, they did what I needed them to do. The Bridgestone Battle Cruise H50s also gave me a lot more confidence to take that lean angle a little bit further, especially in the twisties and turnies, especially in the driftless region where it's so much fun to ride in those twisties and turnies. Let's talk about suspension. That front suspension is good. It's not fantastic. When you hit a large pothole, you really feel that thing bottom out. I'm a lightweight rider. If you're on the heavier side, say 200 plus, you're probably gonna want an upgrade in those front shocks. In 2016, the Iron 883 got an upgrade in the rear shocks, and that carried over to my 2017 Iron 883. The shocks are much better than what they had been in the past, but they're still lacking in the travel that you would need, especially if you want to do any type of two-up riding. If you want to do two-up riding or any type of long-distance travel, upgrading those shocks would be wise. A lot of guys have had luck converting to old Road King air shocks. Now, this is not something that I have personal experience with, but if I ever do any type of long-distance travel on my Iron 883 again, I'm planning on doing the Road King air shock conversion. It just seems to be a good route, and it's worked for a lot of guys. Let's talk about comfort. I've clearly modded my bike out for long distance travel, and I'll get to modding in a little bit, but let's talk about the stock bike. The stock handlebars puts you in a very aggressive riding position, and that tuck and roll seat really completes that aggressive, almost cafe racer style look. But that stock seat is made of plastic and foam, and it's not very comfortable for anything longer than the time that it takes to do a test ride. And with that aggressive riding position with those handlebars, it really doesn't make for a comfortable ride anything longer than across town. So upgrading that seat is a must, and if you want to do any long rides, upgrading the handlebars is a great idea. Let's talk about the mid controls. Those mid controls allow me to balance my weight over the bike, allowing me for a great deal of control. This is really great for beginner riders, but it's also great for seasoned riders who really want to get after it in the twisties and have all the control in the world that they need to really ride aggressively. The mid controls also allow me to stand when I'm about to approach one of those potholes, those spine crunching, teeth chattering potholes. Standing up allows me to brace myself for impact, allowing my legs to take the brunt of it rather than my ass. And that's something I can't do with forward controls. On this channel, I often get asked how tall I am and if the Iron 883 is comfortable for me. For my height and body style, I'm really comfortable with those mid controls, even on longer rides. I've known guys who are 6'2" who have been comfortable with mids. I've known guys who are shorter than me who need forwards. This is really something that's subjective to your body and your comfort and what you're looking for in your riding style. If I was any taller, I personally would go with mid controls. There were some of those really, really long rides where I really stretched my legs out on my highway bar, and that was absolutely necessary for my comfort. Some of those times I wish I had forwards. It would have been just a little bit more comfortable for me. But I'm not willing to give up the control that I have while using mid controls, with balancing my weight and controlling the bike in those twisties and turnies. It's just too much fun to ride the bike like that. When I have my legs forward, I have less control, and it's more like I'm just sitting and riding rather than really maneuvering the bike. Let's talk about aesthetics. Harley Iron 883 is not your father's bike. It's not chromed out. It's subtle, it's black. I love that style because it's subtle. We spend a great deal of time on our motorcycles with loud exhaust or with wild colors shouting, "Hey, look at me." It's kind of nice from my perspective to be riding a bike that's a little bit more subtle. It fits my style, and it fits the style of a lot of other people my age and younger. It's where the motor company has really gone for the last few years, and I think will continue to go with these styles. You look at the specials and the newer bikes, they're all blacked out, and they really look good in that style. A little bit of chrome is nice to make some parts of your bike pop, but having that blacked out look, it's a really nice touch, and it's really where the motor company is going, and I'm very happy about that. The last thing I want to cover before I get to long distance travel and the ridiculous amount of miles that I put on over 2 years on my Harley Iron 883 is modding. So stick around for those two things, but let's just talk about modding really quick. The Harley Iron 883 is a modder's dream. I clearly have modded mine out for long distance travel, and it's served me well. The most difficult thing about owning a Harley Iron 883 is to decide what to do with it. How I see a Harley Iron 883 is that perfect blend between cruiser and retro sport bike. You can really find the happy medium between those two if you really want to. But it's truly a modder's dream. You want a cafe racer? Go ahead and mod it. Want a comfortable commuting bike? Go ahead and mod it. Want a long distance traveling Sportster? Go ahead and mod it. It all can be done. It just all depends on what you want to do. The other brilliant part is you can mod it to fit your personality. The Sportster's been around for more than 60 years. That is a long time to figure out what works with this bike, what people want, and to really build a strong aftermarket. That allows for a lot of flexibility. That allows for a lot of personality in your bike. I've modded my Harley Iron 883 out to fit my personality, and you can do the same with your Harley Iron 883. It's not unlike the clothes that we wear, the tattoos that we have, the style of haircut that we have. It shows our personalities, and it's a wonderful part about owning a Harley Iron 883 or a Sportster in general. The other thing about the Sportster being on the market so long, especially in the last 30 years, it has not changed a whole lot. Talked about the transmission change in '96, and I talked about the EFI change in 2007. Other than that, this bike has not changed a whole heck of a lot. That simplicity makes it easy for riders to wrench on, especially those who are not very familiar with wrenching. It allows you to get your feet wet on a very simple machine. But still, it's entertaining enough to wrench on for those who have wrenched on bikes for years. Saddle Tramp's a great example. He's one of the most knowledgeable motorcycle minds that I know on YouTube. He's wrenching on Evos. He prefers the Evo because of the type of engine that it is. He built the Tramp with his bare hands. That simplicity is easy for beginners, but somebody with his motorcycle knowledge, it's still perfect for wrenching on. It's still a lot of fun. If you want a bike that you just want to ride, you don't need to mod it out, you don't want to wrench on it, go buy an Indian Scout, go buy a Yamaha Bolt. Two great bikes. But if you want a bike that you can mod out to fit your personality, to fit your riding style, and have a lot of fun wrenching on it, buy yourself a Harley Iron 883. Modding my Iron 883 and wrenching on it has been a ton of fun for me. I've done all my own work, and I've documented it here on YouTube, what I've done. Clearly I've modded it out for long distance travel, and that travel has been amazing. Is it the perfect bike for that? I've touched on this a bit, and honestly, I'm gonna say no, it's not. But that's the part of motorcycling that's so much fun. It's the challenge of it. I challenged myself riding all those miles along Route 66. I challenged myself riding long distances in the Driftless region. I opted to ride the motorcycle that I did because it's a challenge. And that's what makes motorcycling fun. That's what makes that journey fun. To prove that I can do it, especially in the face of those saying I shouldn't use that bike. That fits my personality. That's largely why I did it. And I'll love every moment of that. But honestly, if you want a bike for long distance travel, it may not be the best option. There are more comfortable bikes out there. There are better bikes out there for that. From the adventure line to the cruiser line, you can find a lot of great bikes that fit the purpose of long distance travel. But if you want to challenge yourself like I did along the Route 66 trip, and you can watch all 34 or so episodes of that on YouTube right now, go ahead, buy yourself a Harley Iron 883 or another Sportster and mod it out for long distance travel. I guarantee you're gonna have fun because that fun is that challenge. Now, all the miles I put on, a little over 25,000 over 2 years. It's a ton of miles on an Iron 883. It's a ton of miles on any bike in that short a period of time. One thing that I did not like about the Harley Iron 883 is the vibrations. And I know a lot of guys ride Harleys and they say, I love the vibrations, that's part of riding. And that's great, and I love that too, just the feeling of that machine underneath you, it's a wonderful feeling. But it has challenged me over the course of the time that I've owned this Harley Iron 883. Every maintenance issue that I had was because of those vibrations. Some of the issues that I had, brake lights. What happened was the controls, the bolts on it became loose, and it caused some issues with the brake lights. They weren't braking properly. I just had to tighten those up. The other issue I had was the axle alignment bolt snapped. Luckily, I was in an urban area and I can get help quickly, but my bike was unrideable. But the reason this happened was because the axle bolt actually vibrated loose. Yes, it's my fault for waiting 6 weeks to check that bolt. It's part of the critical fastener list. And Tony Cox actually has a really great video on that. I got a link in the description. And the other issue I had was the entire battery compartment became loose and the battery started shifting around while I was riding, causing some components to short out. While I was riding, my bike became unrideable on the way to the Midwest Moto Meetup, and Tony Cox and I actually worked on my bike. He had a trailer at the Midwest Moto Meetup, and we loaded my bike up, took it to the meetup. About 30 miles away is where I broke down, but he and I were working on it, and we figured out that entire battery area, the battery became loose, causing all those shorts. That's because of the vibrations. Thankfully, we were able to diagnose that and create a temporary fix, but all the issues I've had with the Iron 883 was because of the ridiculous amount of vibrations it has. Yes, because of the rubber mounts, it does vibrate a lot less than older Sportsters, but still those vibrations are there, which means you need to be really meticulous when you're wrenching on your bike. Owning a Harley Iron 883 requires some maintenance knowledge. You need to learn how to do this. I think for owning any motorcycle, actually, you need to have some type of maintenance knowledge or build that along the way, which I did with my Harley Iron 883. But especially because the Harley Iron 883 vibrates so much, you really need to be on top of that. You need to do your checks once a week at the very least. It's not very much fun being stranded, and because of those vibrations, that caused me to be stranded on more than one occasion. And I'm pretty good at checking my bike, for the most part. But despite that, over 25,000 miles, this bike is still running very well. That 800cc air-cooled Evolution engine, despite all the complaints about it being underpowered, a girl's bike, or how much oil gets on my leg, I still love how bulletproof that thing is. And it's still running as well 25,000 miles later as it was when I first got it at 7 miles. It's what I love best about that bike, how reliable that engine is. And it's gonna keep running if I keep up with the maintenance. I love that engine. Makes me love that bike even more. So this bike, over the course of 2 years and 25,000 miles, has given me a lot of happiness. You know what else would give me a lot of happiness? If you liked this video or found it helpful, go ahead and give me one of these. If you're new here and you like this video, go ahead and click on that subscribe button so you can see more just like this. Up in the corners here, there are some other videos if you're interested, and you can go ahead and click on the subscribe button down below as well. Thanks for watching, everybody. Ride safe out there and keep your wheels rolling in the right direction. I'll see you in the next video.